How is imposter syndrome diagnosed? Welcome to the School of Self-Worth Alive. I'm Sam Osborne, the Self-Worth Guy. Today I'm talking to you about how is imposter syndrome diagnosed. And if you remember one thing from this video, it's understand the cycle of imposter syndrome. Understand the cycle of imposter syndrome. That's how you diagnose it. Now, just a quick disclaimer, I'm not a medical professional. This is just my own understanding of how to diagnose imposter syndrome. So take it with a grain of salt. Maybe it'll help you out. But I really believe that if you can identify the cycle, break down the cycle of imposter syndrome, you'll be able to diagnose it. Let's look at three things: the symptoms, and then we're going to look at the behaviors and the pattern. Let's go through those three things. So to diagnose imposter syndrome, let's look at the symptoms. So initially, I'm just going to talk about my own experience of it and touch on a few points of what is quite common with other people. So the symptoms of imposter syndrome is when you feel like you haven't that you're fake, or you're a fraud, or that somehow your achievements have been accomplished through luck, that you don't really deserve them, that you're not quite the expert or the authority that your effort, your accomplishments are actually saying that you really are. And it can make you feel like you are not good enough, and it can create overthinking, can cause anxiety, it can cause you to feel low self-worth, low confidence, all of these things. Okay, so these are the symptoms. That basically, in a nutshell, imposter syndrome, the symptom of it is that it makes you feel like you are not good enough, and it holds you back in life. Let's look at the pattern and the cycle of imposter syndrome. First of all, there's a whole lot of overthinking going on. We get into a situation, or we know we're about to go into a situation where we will feel like an imposter, or we won't feel good enough, and we start to overthink. That's the first thing. We start overthinking everything. And then we start to doubt ourselves. And then we will probably feel some anxiety, some depression. We might withdraw into ourselves and not ask for help, which is probably a good indication to ask for help and an outside opinion at that point. And then after we withdraw into ourselves, we might start to feel like giving up and quitting, because of the feeling can really crush the spirit. I know what it's like. You might think you can do something, but you still have this feeling of just, I'm not good enough. And then you start thinking about the criticism that other people might give you the moment you take a step out of your comfort zone. And this is all going on inside your head. And this is the experience I had. So that's the pattern, the cycle. And let's look at some of the behaviors. Well, the behavior is that when you go to a situation, you start to feel maybe like you want to sink through the floor. You start to get the sweats, you get nervous, you study your words, and you just don't feel like yourself. You don't feel like your authentic self, like you can't be it for some reason, like you haven't given yourself permission, or like somebody else is judging you a lot. So it can really affect your behaviors. And if you want to break the imposter syndrome cycle, instead of the overthinking bit, this is where you stop thinking and get into your heart, and you act from your heart. And if you do that, you can't go wrong. You might make mistakes. You might get some bad, negative feedback from people. But if you come from your heart, that is the way through imposter syndrome, because your heart doesn't think, it feels, doesn't it? It's the brain that does too much overthinking, and that's where imposter syndrome creates. But if you get into your heart and you trust yourself and you trust your heart, you're going to overcome imposter syndrome. So let's summarize. How to diagnose imposter syndrome? Well, you need to look at the cycle. You need to understand the nature of imposter syndrome by breaking it down. You can look at the symptoms, you can look at the pattern and the cycle, and you can look at the behaviors, the things that it makes you do, or the things that it stops you from being able to do. Now, if you've loved this video, I've got a free gift for you. It's called Crush Imposter Syndrome Forever, the starter kit for bulletproof confidence. And you can get it in the links above on Facebook and LinkedIn, and on the links below on YouTube. Or if you're listening on Podbean, it's in the description. And I invite you to join the School of Self-Worth Facebook group. Come and say hi, request a video with your questions, request a shout out. I'm there every day. And if you remember one thing from this video, it's understand the cycle and the nature of imposter syndrome. And that's how you diagnose imposter syndrome. Have a great night, everybody. I will see you tomorrow.